Hey guys, it's Kale from Scud Style again, and I have another NoFap literature entry for today. This one's Science Discovers the Physiological Value of Continence. This was published originally in 1957. This is a reprint from 2010, but nothing was really changed. It's kind of cool. This one's more of like a research paper. It's like typewritten, and there are clear typos here and there, but I think it's kind of cool. It's written by Dr. R.W. Bernard, A.B., M.A., Ph.D. Science Discovers the Physiological Value of Continence. And this one's kind of cool because this is a Western scientist. A lot of the stuff on this, on things like retention and cultivation and the value of the seminal fluid and things like that, is rooted in kind of an Eastern mentality. And so this is cool to see it from, a Western scientist purporting all these claims. So let's just get right into it. There's no table of contents. It just jumps into a research paper. Little disclaimer that, the publishers don't necessarily agree with anything that is in here. Yeah, I've written all over this thing. I made a little note here from when I was reading this back in 2016. The belief that the exercise of the sex function is necessary to the health of the male at any age is a pure delusion, while before full maturity it is highly injurious. So especially for teenagers and things like that, it's especially bad during growth. The semen contains substances of high physiological value, especially in relation to the nutrition of the brain and nervous system. If resorption of semen through the wall of the female genitalia tract has a vitalizing effect on the female organism, the same would be the case in the body of the male in which it is formed and conserved. So there's all kinds of stuff, like I said, I've written all over it. Talks about kind of, for those who are suffering maybe with like a porn addiction or some kind of artificial stimuli which is causing you to unnaturally engage in sexual activity or sexual release or things like that. It talks about all that kind of stuff, and I've made a lot of notes in that area. So just real quick, I want to go into a little bit. Abstinence or sexual continence is by no means impractical for a normal young man of average constitution, assiduous in intellectual and physical work, and abstaining from artificial excitants. Adding the idea is current among young people that abstinence is something abnormal and impossible, and yet the many who observe it prove that chastity can be protected without prejudice to health. He goes into all this kind of stuff. He talks about he kind of debunks the notion that the popular idea that abstinence causes the genital organs to atrophy and produce impotence. Says that's a grave error. Chastity no more injures the body than the soul. Organs and glands are different than muscles. And so not using the prostate gland will not cause it to atrophy, is his claim in here. So there's all kinds of gold in this thing, but it's a little bit drier, obviously. Unlike the Brain Gain, the book I previously did, that was kind of broken up into really clear sections, had pictures, had quotes, had all kinds of stuff. This is like a dense research paper, which I think is really cool. I kind of nerded out on. But it's dense. It's hard to do in one sitting, and there's also a bunch of different references of other people and their Western work on the importance of this stuff. It's almost like it was covered up, kind of like conspiracy type stuff. It's kind of cool. In here he talks about really specifics of severe health ramifications of like excessive sexual expenditure. Moderation in sexual intercourse is not only conducive to prolonged virility, but to longevity. Goes into the longevity aspect of it. He touches on some things about memory and sight, two things that I marked because I had personal gains in both of those things when I was retaining for a long time. Just memory. The memory and even the understanding are evidently diminished. The sight is obscured. Diseases on the nerves and all kind of gouty and rheumatic pains, an astonishing weakness in the back, all kinds of this stuff. So it really goes into some detail. anything, and when it talks about what constitutes excess, so this guy's taken, an extreme view too. The reply is given, anything is in excess when procreation is not the end. Basically saying that it's excessive if it's done recreationally. So, and here we say, probably more of the nervous fluid or influence is expended in a single sexual crisis or ejaculation than would suffice to carry on all the vital operations, perhaps for a day. So, let that sink in. All the vital things that keep you alive and all that kind of things like that. You're expending the energy for all of that in one thing. So, talks about the sex life of civilized men is unnatural. Talks about, comparing to the animal kingdom and things like that. Yep, and more supporting studies of men's unnatural sex drive. It's a note that I took. Chapter 5 here, a biochemical theory of neuroses and psychoses. Kind of disorders that have come from unnatural sexual excess. And the biology behind all of that. The fluids elaborated by the testes, the prostate gland, and the accessory sex glands are very rich in phosphorus, as are the spermatozoa themselves. Yeah, it talks about how that leads to the loss of phosphorus content in the blood. It just goes really deep into the science from a Western, because as I was saying earlier, in Eastern it's kind of like, it talks about energy, it talks about things like that, which I'm very into. But this is cool because it balances out kind of the more scientific side. Glandular depletion. Talks a lot about lecithin, and how lecithin is so key, and it's such a big role in the brain and things like that. This book's not that long. Okay, cool. Now we have the section that the chemistry of the semen really goes into detail of these kinds of things. The average amount. Human semen contains 90% water and 10% solids, which when incinerated yield 1% ash. All kinds of almost over-the-top analysis of stuff, but if you really want to know, it's there. Then it talks, the proteins, albumin, nucleoproteins, globulins, mucin, nuclein, protease, potamin, and all kinds of things. And then obviously the lipids, the phosphorized fats, including lecithin. Talks about the percentage makeup, cholesterol. And cholesterol is actually a precursor to male hormones, testosterone, things like that. So when you retain, you can, increase that testosterone, which has a ton of benefits. Look up any video on the benefits of testosterone. People are trying to do it exogenously. They're trying to take pills and injections and all this kind of stuff when, endogenously or internally is just so much healthier, the bioavailability, and it doesn't mess with your hormones. Because if you let your hormones naturally regulate, it's going to be so much better than if you're bringing in hormones from the outside, because then you lose the ability to produce those things. It gets into a vicious cycle. But anyway, yeah, minerals, phosphorus, sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, iron, sulfur, chlorine. And it's got all these charts, the chemistry of the spermatozoa, chemistry of the brain down here. And so everything's connected. Here, this is a really cool section right here. Chemistry of the brain. Gray matter, the white matter. And so it ties in. It shows exactly what the makeup of the sperm is and exactly what the makeup of the brain is. And it really shows how many direct contributing nutrients and things we are losing that contribute directly to the brain. Albumin and keratin, lecithin, cholesterol and fat, cerebrin, minerals are all the same. Right? So, yeah, that's page 39. Talks about diseases from, losing that lecithin and stuff like that, being lecithin. And, so there's like 46, 47 pages here. It's not that long, but it's a really cool book. Goes a lot into the science, is really detailed, and it's from 1957. It just recently resurfaced. I think this one particularly was published in 2010. So hope you guys enjoy that, and good luck out there. Have fun.